The big game is set. Make your winning move today and bet at MyBookie. Use promo code Gators and claim your deposit match, redeemable up to $1,000. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
Hi, buddy. What's going on?
What's up, Dave?
I actually have a voice today. Much better than it was the last couple of days.
Glad you feeling better, Dave.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling too bad, but man, the allergies were getting to me a bit, and then it just kind of ruined the vocal cords a little bit. So
we ain't even got to the worst part yet.
Hey, the pollen was really, really bad here in North Florida. Mid last week, late last week. So we got some rain on Sunday, and absolutely needed it just to get all that stuff away.
Yeah, I hear you. I get horrible sinus headaches all the time when this pollen comes through.
Oh yeah, for sure. Speaking of headaches, we got plenty to get into right here, and all the off-season talk is probably going to be a little bit of a headache for the Gators. We'll get into Gators not getting much love, and probably rightfully so. You know, it is a lot of show me, prove me. You know, the angle for Florida going into the 2024 season, but we'll get it all right here, and most of it's not going to be a good look at Florida, kind of looking at where coming off of Billy Napier's second year, where he ranks among other coaches as far as a rating goes. ESPN, of course, lists him on a hot seat. Did get some favorable news for the Gators, and Bill Connolly's SP Plus returning production. The Gators pretty high in the SEC. I'll go and kind of compare that to last year as well. It's kind of funky. It's starting to get normalized a bit coming out of COVID, in the COVID years, and getting out of that time where you don't have a lot of these 5th year, 6th year, 7-year guys on your roster. So it's starting to normalize a bit. So Connolly brought that up as well, but plenty to get into, of course. But the early looks for Florida, not surprisingly, are not too good. But we got plenty of angles to get into that. We'll also get your guys' feedback on what you thought of the Trayon Webb interview. Starting to get some more interviews throughout the preseason here with Florida victorious. Starting to send them our way. So some more should be coming pretty soon. I got sent a list and made my selections of who I'd like to see on Gators Breakdown. So should be having plenty more player interviews coming up. But it's been a while since I've got to do a chat. I'm going to make this one available for everybody, give everybody a taste of what we do here on Gators Breakdown Plus. So like, subscribe if you're watching, if you're listening, leave a comment. But plenty to get into, and everybody, thanks for hopping in right here on Gators Breakdown Plus. As I said, it's been a little bit since we've gotten together. After the beginning of the year, I kind of mentioned it here, but man, I've been under the weather a good bit to start 2024. So maybe that's not a harbinger of things to come.
Well, the way the weather's been changing, it's been hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Good deal. Good deal. So I'll steer the conversation, and we'll start with. I've been saving some of this because this is a conversation I really did want to get in a little back and forth with Gator Nation right here on Gators Breakdown Plus. And guys, CBS Sports did put out their college football second year coach grades. So Billy Napier, of course, after 2 years, he's in that group with Kalen DeBoer and Mike Elko and other, Brian Kelly at LSU. And, CBS Sports put out their grades through the first 2 years of those coaches. And Billy Napier's been given a D, an 11-14 record through 2 years. I'm not sure there's a coach at the Power 5 level on a hotter seat than Napier. After an uninspiring 6-7 record in 2022, the Gators were less inspiring in 2023 amid a 5-7 campaign. What had been a great recruiting class fizzled as signing day approached and the losses mounted. The Gators head into 2024 with one of the toughest schedules in the country and not a lot of confidence in their coach, giving Billy Napier a grade of a D. Now, the summary, the analysis there, pretty spot on. Nothing there has been said that's embellishing the truth. It's exactly what's happened. They give a complete record, what happened on the field with the recruiting class. I mean, the grade D pretty much fits. If anybody can go another way with that, if you'd give him higher, or I'm probably sure some out there would give an F because of where the 11 wins isn't good enough. But I'd say a D is probably pretty fair.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. I'd say D.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I don't really know. There's not really much to argue with him for at this point.
You definitely can't. I mean, I guess you could, but there's not much for his side to improve that grade. I mean, I don't see there's not a whole lot of argument to say he's better than a D.
I think that's the conversation. If you went one way or the other, I think you'd find a lot more people who would go the F route than you would the C route, and probably rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, D minus maybe. Maybe not a full F. I mean, but it definitely hasn't been pretty. So.
With that, they do have plus and minus grades for some of these other guys. So Mike Elko was given an A with a 16-9 record at Duke his first 2 years. Brian Kelly at LSU given a B plus with a 20-7 overall record. Mario Cristobal, there you go. That's the one I think we're looking at here. Is given a D plus, so he's in that D range as well, with a 12-13 overall record. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, 19-8, a B record. Brent Venables at Oklahoma, 16-10 overall with a C plus record, a grade. Dan Lanning, 22-5, a B plus grade. I'd say as a first-time head coach, I'd probably would slide that to like an A minus if I there with Dan Lanning. Sonny Dykes, TCU, an A minus, of course, heavily weighted on year one, get to the national championship game. Joey McGuire at Texas Tech, 15-11 overall, a C plus. Lincoln Riley, 19-8 at USC. He's also given a D. So look, guys, that's a funny one. That is a funny one. He's given a D, the same as Billy Napier. And he's got a 19-8 overall record, while Billy Napier has an 11-14 overall record. So you can tell it's heavily weighted on maybe USC failing to meet somewhat expectations, and Billy Napier trying to dig out of a hole a bit. But both guys given a D, and the record's not even close.
Well, I mean, he did have a Heisman Trophy quarterback. And only he's gone 19-8, but there also may be a little bit of ESPN bias towards USC and Lincoln Riley. I don't know. That seems a little.
Yeah,
I don't think he's a D at 19-8. I mean,
I don't either.
Probably a C.
There you go. I'd say it is disappointing, but I'd probably put it at a C. And they say USC entered the season as the Pac-12 favorite behind reigning Heisman winner Caleb Williams, and the Trojans were viewed as a national title contender. They finished 8-5 as Williams regressed, and the defense put on a weekly exhibition of how not to tackle or cover receivers. Now USC enters a new era in the Big Ten with many more questions than answers, evidenced by Riley completely and belatedly overhauling his defensive staff. Hey, look at that. Both guys heading into year 3 and making those changes on defense. So keeping it going here, Tony Elliott at Virginia, 6-16, a C minus. Virginia Tech, Brent Pry, which is a team to watch out for. They give him a B minus. First-time head coach, really came on at the end of last year. I know people were kind of looking at Virginia Tech to make a big leap next year. Of course, Kalen DeBoer, A plus, 25-3 overall at Washington. And then Jack Dickert at Washington State, 15-16 overall with a C grade. So I think somewhat disappointing for me. And looking at these are all the Power 5 hires, by the way. No sense in going to the group of 5 in the comparison here. But I think what probably stands out the most to me, besides just the overall record and the grade for Billy Napier, are the first-time head coaches that are seemingly doing better than him. He had his experience at Louisiana. That was supposed to pay off in at least year 2 of Florida, going through the trials and the tribulations like he did at Louisiana in year 1 and letting that pay off at year 2. Well, we didn't see that payoff in year 2. But while Mike Elko is doing things at Duke that hasn't been done in quite some time, You had Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame going 19-8. Britt Venables 16-10 at Oklahoma. Dan Lanning 22-5 at Oregon. I mean, these are first-time head coaches. Given we know the SEC's harder, that is true, but shouldn't his experience have paid off a little bit more comparing to the first-time head coaches who have some did much better than Billy Napier?
Absolutely should have. I mean, not to mention he was supposedly given all the resources. I mean, I'm not sure if that's accurate, but yeah, he should have been better.
But my thing is, like we can look at the reasons, and yeah, we know the schedule's hard, and we know it was a young team and all that stuff. But at the same time, there are first time head coaches out there doing pretty good darn things. Maybe experience is overrated.
I'll give him he gets a pass for the first year, I guess, because he was kind of thrown into the NIL, transfer portal. But that's not an excuse anymore. I mean, you've got the portal, you've got NIL. Like you said, first year coaches are doing it. I mean, this is year 3. I mean, if we really want to look at our portal class, it hasn't been. I mean, it wasn't spectacular last year, and it hasn't been spectacular this year. I mean, we'll see how it plays out on the field, but on paper, it's pretty average to maybe slightly above average. So, I mean, the recipe's there. I mean, there's players out there. I mean, you've seen other teams do it, so there's really not a good excuse that I can think of other than it's just him. He's just not cut out for the job. And maybe he proves us all wrong this year, but what we've seen so far, it's not been impressive.
I think the crazy part too is if Napier wins 7 games both years instead of 5 and 6, we feel so different. And you can one can argue pretty easily that at least 2 of the games you could directly blame Napier, whether it's situational game management, play calling, for at least a couple of those losses. So, I mean, just 7, it doesn't mean that we're a top dog again, but 7 instead of 5 and 6, we feel way different.
No, I completely agree. When the criticism for me comes from Napier, it's not because, look, I expected him to go out there and win an SEC championship. That's not it. It's just plain and simple. I think Florida should just be better than what they are. That's really all it boils down to. 7, 8 wins in year 1 and year 2, but not even, really not even close to that. And the overall record, certainly lends itself. I'll go on. ESPN does put Billy Napier on their hot seat, college football coaching hot seat 2024. I mean, the title of the article, guys, for every coach that's on the hot seat, but the title of the article is College Football Coaching Hot Seat 2024. Napier needs to win. I mean, so the Florida coach is the one headlining the article here by Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. But they do go on to say about Billy Napier, the Gators' hire of Napier looked strong at the time as they landed a coach who had been very selective about his first Power 5 job after a successful stint at Louisiana. But Napier is just 11-14 overall, 6-10 in the SEC, and has had challenges with on-field consistency, retaining and attracting top players, and maintaining a strong staff. Florida hasn't had a coach make it through year 4 since Urban Meyer and might be hesitant about another quick change. The status of athletic director Scott Strickland, who hired Napier, also should be monitored here. But if Napier can't navigate a brutal schedule, Florida State, Miami, and UCF in non-league play, plus SEC trips to Texas and Tennessee and Georgia and Jacksonville, it's hard to see him back in 2025. Billy Napier joins Dave Aranda and Sam Pittman as the only coaches on the list that are on the hot seat, while they do mention keep an eye on Chip Kelly, Clark Lee, Ryan Day, Pat Narduzzi at Pitt, and then retirement watch for Mac Brown, Kyle Whittingham, Kirk Ferentz. As far as Power 5 hot seat talk goes, it's Billy Napier, Sam Pittman, and Dave Aranda from ESPN. And I mean, look, it's hard to we don't want to talk about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. When Billy Napier was hired, I didn't think we'd find ourselves heading into year 3 with hot seat talk already. That's what blows my mind about some of this as well. I was not prepared. I did not want to be here at this time, even entertaining the conversation. But the results speak for themselves, and hopefully is something that when we all look back at the end of 2024. We're kind of laughing and say, hey, remember all those preseason articles early in February with Billy Napier being on the hot seat? Yeah, no more. But, there's no, I don't mean to hound on it, but there's just so much out there about the critical year this is for Billy Napier.
Well,
I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say it is. I mean, if you just look at the situation, it is a critical year.
I mean, the only thing I can compare it to is Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, he didn't have good records his entire career until this year, at Missouri, and that's the only thing we can hold our hats on is hopefully that's what happens. But it's like with some of the portal moves, it's like I'm kind of like you better start developing some guys, or this is just what it's going to be.
It is time for the big games to put cash in your wallet with MyBookie. MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. You can turn all that sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Chiefs, 49ers, bet on the big game or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, well, one more big matchup on the gridiron to do so. Sign up at MyBookie, use promo code Gators, and claim your deposit match, redeemable up to $1,000. One more time, that's promo code Gators to claim your bonus. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Well, on that note, and we'll turn it a little positive. I found this today, and you can find the article at gatorsbreakdown.com of, hey, maybe all this hot seat talk and talk of a tough schedule, maybe that could be remedied a bit by the experience Florida brings back, and kind of caught my eye. A bit. I've been kind of waiting for this, and Bill Connolly does some great work there with his SP Plus. I know it was independent for a while, and ESPN picked it up a few years ago, and he's been really lauded for all his research and his formula that goes into his rankings. And Florida ranks favorably in returning production, returning 68% of their production. That does count transfers as well, and that ranks 32nd out of 134 teams. And Connolly goes on to say, on average, teams returning at least 80% of production improved by about 6.4 adjusted points per game in the following season. That's a pretty significant jump for a team ranked 25th in SP Plus last year. Adding 6.4 points to its rating would have bumped it to about 13th. And if we lower the bar to just 70%, that's about where Florida is in returning production. A bar 25 teams currently clear. That's been enough to boost teams by an average of 4 points since 2014. So Florida hovering around that point there. But if you dig deeper, Florida does rank 4th in the SEC in returning production. And that's only behind Texas A&M at 18th, Texas at 25th, and Missouri at 31st. Missouri one spot ahead of Florida as far as returning production goes. Of course, Florida has to play Texas A&M and Texas, but was a bit surprising to me. Maybe it shouldn't be, where Florida has some experience coming back in like Graham Mertz, the offensive line, Montrell Johnson, Trey Wilson. On defense, you got Cam Jackson, Jordan Castell, bringing in Chiquez Bridges, Asa Turner, Joey Slackman. I mean, there are plenty of snaps that this team took last year, whether it be on Florida's roster or not. But maybe all this talk of a tough schedule, it's warranted, of course, but maybe there's a way to, I think best way to explain it in what we're looking at right now, still a couple of wins. Florida maybe right now don't look like they should get.
How accurate is this Bill Connolly, Dave? Is he pretty on the mark with some of his predictions and stuff each year in, year out?
That is something I did want to go back and look at. Now, I did, just because I was interested, I did pull up last year's college football teams returning production for 2023 season to kind of get a comparison. And number one last year was Florida State, undefeated regular season. Kansas was number 2. They were, having a pretty good season. Injuries kind of dealt with them a little bit there. Michigan was number 5, going on to win the national championship. Texas A&M was 7. Missouri was number 9 last year, so they fall all the way to 31st this year. So that they took advantage. But like top 10 was Florida State, Kansas, FAU, Wyoming, Michigan, UConn, Texas A&M, Boston College, Missouri, Temple. USC was 14. So probably once you given they were returning a Heisman Trophy winner and they were the 14th most experienced team in the country, yeah, you can definitely say that was probably disappointing. Utah was 16. And look, that was with Cam Rising coming into the season, never played a down last year for them. Washington was number 22. Let's see. Wisconsin was 27 in the new head coach year. Auburn was 28 in the new head coach year. Ole Miss was 30th, by the way, right around Florida. Florida's 32nd. Ole Miss was 71% returning production. They were around where Florida is now. Speaking of the spot number 32, guess who was in spot number 32 last year? That was one LSU with 71% returning. And compare that to Florida, as I said, and Florida ranked 68%. So, a couple percentage points in there. You start grouping those teams there. Ole Miss, LSU, Duke was number 33 with 71% as well. But then you keep looking on. Miami was 70%. Clemson was 69%. So, there's some pluses and minuses there, but especially at the top. I mean, your two teams that play for the national championship, Washington and Michigan, were up near the top, or they were pretty high. When you go and look at it, Washington 22, Michigan number 5. I do think, would probably go through a little bit of a history with it, but, maybe do some deeper dives into what this could mean for Florida. But all in all, I think put it this way, it won't hurt Florida. It can only help.
Do they they go by like snaps played, but for each position?
Good question. I don't think I put that in the article because I didn't want to steal all of the content there.
But I'd like to know.
I got
how
it.
much of
I got it.
Some of these teams.
Yeah, we'll discuss.
Are transfers and how many are returning starters. That kind of makes a difference on returning experience. I mean, I get what they're saying. We've got the transfers coming in, and he's got, however many snaps, and that's counted in. But these guys haven't all played together on the team, as one.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that answered my mind as well. He does say, quite crudely, if a player transfers from one FBS school to another, I mash his production from his previous team into the numerator and denominator for his new team. So if your quarterback leaves and you bring in a transfer who was starting somewhere else, that dampens the overall blow of your quarterback leaving significantly. The example he brings up is FSU. Jordan Travis leaving, but DJ Uiagalelei coming in. So, the equation, it doesn't get hit as hard. But he does.
I got you.
He does go on for offense current weights. He says there's the current weighting for determining the offensive percentage goes like this. Percentage of wide receiver tight end is 23.5% of the overall number. Returning quarterback passing yards is 24% of the number. Returning offensive line snaps played is 47.5%. Let you know the how he values the game of football and how it's being played right now. Percent of returning running back rushing yards is only 5% of his equation on offense. For defense, it is percent of returning tackles at 69.5%. So it's not just necessarily position by position on defense. It's percent of returning tacklers at 69.5%. Percent of returning passes defended is 12%. That's intercepted or broken up. Percent of returning tackles for loss is 10.5%. And percent of returning sacks goes at 8%. So he goes by position, linebackers make up of about 44% of the defensive formula. Pretty important right there, right? For Florida's recruiting class, getting Pup Howard in, Shamar James returning. So he puts a lot of value in the linebacker position. You go back to our conversation with Will last week and what he showed, it's more of a defensive backfield heavy as far as what PFF numbers show. It's just one analytic, one way to look at it. Bill Connolly seems to go and really puts a lot of value into the linebacker spot. So good for Florida, and for Connolly's route of putting a lot of weight on linebackers and what Florida did with getting Pup Howard and the true freshman class, and also going to the kind of PFF and weighing what Will was able to plot out last week. Florida getting a whole lot of experience, in the defensive backfield.
New coaches for both positions, so
yeah,
fingers crossed.
So,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. It seems that with all the ratings and the talk or whatever, the hot seat talk, it's pretty much, I guess, they pointed toward the coach only. I mean, and not necessarily the players. I mean, because from year in and year out, with the way things are, the game has changed. The NIL, everything, and the portal stuff. I mean, it's hard to kind of keep a team together.
Yeah.
I mean, chemistry. Well, I mean, chemistry is key. And yeah, I mean, I guess you look at the Georgias and you look at the big teams or whatever, and yeah, they have turnover too, but I mean, a whole lot of them studs is the ones that stay are the ones that know their job and in jeopardy. So, so those are the guys that gonna play. All right. So, that's staying. So, so I'm well. What I'm trying to get at is, it seems like by default we kind of got to hang. We got to deal with him because, I mean, you got to have a quarterback, man, and Mertz was a sweet surprise, but when you look at the overall scheme of things, he's really been a small sample size. He's got, a whole nother set of receivers to try to get with again, minus Wilson,
Yep.
And then you got to, you got to get the quarterback right. If you want a good team, you got to get the quarterback right, quarterback room right, the trenches right. I mean, man, we've been turning over like apple and cherry turnovers, man, on that line, on both lines, man. It's like, jeez, man. I mean, what can you do? A lot of these good teams have like set 2 and 3 classes deep, next man up, So, I mean, them guys ain't leaving, they like, shoot, I've been waiting this long. I'm next, So, but that's not what's going on with us. I mean, who's our starting front line? I mean,
But that's the thing there. For if you want to go by the experience part of that, you do have Barber and Slaughter slated to return up there. Maybe Damian George, but at a different position. Maybe he slides inside the guard. So you could be returning 3. And then Crenshaw Dixon comes in, who played a whole lot of snaps. Like I said, his snaps transfer over. And Manuel from Arkansas, he's played a lot of football. So, at least going by how Connolly puts it together, and even though there are transfers, there are a lot of snaps that have been played for your main key pieces that we're looking at along the offensive line. And pair that with an experienced Mertz, pair that with an experienced Montrell Johnson. You have Trey Wilson coming back, but as you said, you got to go past him. What is Florida going to do at receiver? But you can see where the experience through the transfer portal and all those snaps coming, and Mertz, of course, that's going to be weighted heavy at the quarterback spot. Him playing all those years at Wisconsin and playing so much, for Florida last year, except for the FSU game, you can see where that experience is going to translate for Florida.
Right. Well, I'm kind of what I'm hoping is in this off season, the defense is prepped the most. You know what I mean? Because I mean, if nothing else, that defense is going to win you the game at the end if you got a reliable. We lost the game. Can't remember which one it was. They're late. A game we should, probably should have pulled out, but because our defense, we just couldn't hold on.
Missouri.
It was a
every game,
high scoring game, and God dog on that defense just couldn't hold on, man. And,
well, if we want to talk about experience, there, and Cam Jackson, let's go up the middle. Cam Jackson, Shamar James, Jordan Castell. That is a lot of snaps returning from last year. And Cam Jackson's played a whole lot. Shamar James has played a whole lot. Castell got a ton of snaps as a true freshman last year. So you hope, if we're talking about experience, that's what's got to pay off. I mean, look, how many times did we hear it last year, guys? The excuse that a lot of people wanted to throw out there. You guys know me. I didn't harp on it too much. Did it play a factor? Yes. Was it the only factor? Was it as big of a factor as some made it to be? Well, that was the youth. Well, okay, if you're going to give me that excuse from last year, you can't give it to me this year. It's going to have to pay off. These numbers right here show it, and we all saw it with our own eyes last year. All these true freshmen on defense that played snaps, and all right, that's got to pay off in this critical year 3 where Billy Napier's got to probably have a couple surprise wins on the docket. Some of that's going to have to be because you played those young guys last year, paired with that experience I just brought up as well. I mean, all that's got to come together this year for that defense to take a step.
Right, and one last thing, and I'll touch for a little bit. Okay, we paying the players. Maybe not all of them are getting paid, but okay, now where's the part where we hold them accountable? You know what I'm saying? So I mean, because in the past we had guys who were accountable and wasn't getting paid. We could rely on the Earl Everett. We could rely on, as we go along, Jonathan Grenard, and he was a transfer, and Bullard and all these others, and they weren't getting paid, So, I mean, you look around, it's like, who's your guy? I mean, you got James. Okay, we know about James, but it's kind of few and far between. You can kind of say, okay, this guy is your leader. That guy is your main leader. Who's going to hold other guys accountable? I want to see it, more. I mean, now you're getting paid. Now what's up, So that's all.
Yeah, I mean, with experience comes, you need guys to step up. You need your leaders. That's probably been somewhat questioned the last few years as well. Where that leadership comes from, who's going to step up and be that voice on the field, off the field when Florida needs it. Hey, look, you got a quarterback returning this year. That should be a big part of that. Shamar James going into his 3rd year. You think he's one? Cam Jackson should be one. And then you bring in a ton of experience through the transfer portal on the back end. So pieces got to fit together pretty fast. But hey, and keep looking at this experience. One more thing, Seth Varnador. I'm glad he retweeted it on Twitter, and I want to share it right here. I want to share it right here in the episode. But it was the late going back to 2019 returning production and what it meant for Florida. 2019, Florida brought back 74% of its roster, 77% on offense, 71% on defense. So that we know 2019 ended up with only 2 losses. Your only 2 losses were LSU and Georgia that year. Go to 2020, 65% of the team returned, 63 on offense, 67 on defense. And went on to play Alabama in the SEC championship games, inexcusable losses along the way. To Texas A&M, LSU, the inexcusable performance in the bowl game. But then, you lose a lot of those pieces. In 2021, the year Dan Mullen got fired, only returning 54% of the roster, 43% on offense, of course. You lose Kyle Trask and Tony and Pitts, and 65% in the defense, but the defense, of course, still because that's kind of crazy now looking at these numbers and why, and just looking at it and seeing how bad this defense was in 2019. The defense wasn't terrible. We going into 2020, what was the narrative about the Florida defense? It was to get better in the big games. Because besides that, they were okay. They were okay, but not against Georgia, not against LSU. Not many defenses were good against LSU in 2019. But still, that 2019 defense, 71%. Then you returned 67% in 2020, and the defense falls off of a cliff. Not great in 2021, 65% of it returned. 2022, Billy Napier's first year, 64% of the defense. Still not great. Still couldn't get better with Patrick Toney coming in. And then last year, of course, 53%. Austin Armstrong comes in. We know all the new pieces. We just talked about all the youth that played last year. But the last 2 years, guys, Billy Napier's first year, last year for Billy Napier, 2022, his first year, 55% returning. 2023, 54% returning overall. 2024, 68%. So hovering around 55% the last 2 years, and now a jump all the way to 68%. So, we can throw the youth excuse out the window, the experience excuse out the window. There is a schedule that's really tough, but this tells me, all right, maybe, just maybe, you got enough experience to overcome this very, very tough schedule Florida has.
Let's hope we can get all the experience and get them all playing together.
Yeah, but big shout out to Seth for that comparison. That really helps explain what Florida has been going through ever since the tail end of Dan Mullen.
I would like to know why he values the running back experience. When you broke down the experience, it was how much percentage of it was quarterbacks to receivers and tight ends, and it was only like 5% of the running back. I mean, that doesn't make much sense to me, considering, all teams still use a running back, still run the ball with a running back, even though
I'm going to assume. I'm going to assume maybe because it's split up a good bit. Not necessarily just one guy.
Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
that's just my guess. That's just my guess.
It just seemed like a really big difference. It went from 25% for quarterbacks and receivers to like 5% or whatever it was.
You know what?
Running backs.
I just said probably does make sense because it says broken out by position / player. You're looking at roughly 24% for the quarterback. That makes sense. 6% for each of 4 wide receivers or tight ends. 5% for the running back.
Okay.
So there you go. That's probably where it comes from. We'll move past this in just a second, but I want to show you just because it's kind of hard to compare recent years, and Connolly does go on to explain how much the COVID years play into it. Because with each added year of data I have to play with, offensive line snaps become a heavier piece of the equation, which could be interesting in 2024 considering how many teams are starting over up front. Last year, 27 teams returned under 50% of their offensive line snaps from the previous season. This year, 37 teams are 50% or lower. So he's going to start putting more value in returning offensive linemen because there's just going to be less of them. Let's see. National title game participants, Michigan and Washington, are both under 30%. And a third college football playoff team, Alabama, is under 50%. It's conceivable that when the NCAA granted a bonus year of eligibility for everyone involved in the 2020 COVID season, that impacted offensive line experience significantly in the years that followed. But a lot of those guys have now run out of eligibility, and a lot of otherwise very talented teams are going to be dealing with issues up front. That could be beneficial for teams with excellent defensive fronts, not to mention teams that have bucked the trend and compiled extremely experienced offensive lines, teams like Texas, for instance. Really interesting there.
So not us.
Not us. But you got Barber, Slaughter. A lot of experience coming back there. George, but how do you value that experience?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and Barber wasn't. I mean, he didn't.
Right.
Slaughter, I'll say yes. He played pretty good. Barber kind of looked like he took a step back, and I mean, I think that's because he was playing next to an All-American, 2 years ago. So
yeah,
I mean, I think that made a huge difference. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we're still It's still the weakest part on that side of the ball is the offensive line, which is still shocking to me considering the resources we put towards it.
For sure. I mean, this is the year development has to pay off. Your Najee Harris's of the world, your Roger Kearney's of the world. I think, and this is just my guessing on this, this is what the staff is built towards. Their ability or supposed ability to develop the offensive line. If that is their path, if that's how they chose to go, this is, we have to see that pay off this year. All right, guys, putting all this together. One reason I kind of want to go this route, of course, Josh Pate, big fan of Pate State here, but put out his SEC power rankings, and of course that was going to go like wildfire. And Georgia number 1, no surprise. Alabama number 2, kind of surprised. Heading into the 2024 season, I probably personally would put Texas, given the changes at Alabama. But no issue with it. Just saying, if Texas was number 2, I wouldn't have had any problem with it. But Pate goes Georgia, Bama, Texas. LSU is number 4. Oklahoma number 5. Number 6 is Ole Miss. Tennessee is 7. Texas A&M 8. Auburn comes in at 9. Missouri 10. South Carolina 11. Kentucky 12. Florida 13th. Arkansas 14th. Mississippi State 15th. Vanderbilt 16th. I didn't get a chance to listen to his episode, so apology for that. But he did say, I value a rolling 3-year snapshot of the following: on-field performance, talent acquisition, stability, and resource pool. So he put all those parameters into his snapshot. So on-field performance, talents acquisition, stability, resource pool. So that's why he has Alabama above Texas. That's to explain it. I still wouldn't have had an issue given where I see the teams going in 2024. I do think Texas is going to be really good in 24. But that gives you the explainer of why LSU is so high and why Ole Miss is below them. Tennessee being number 7.
Yeah.
Of course, so that's really baked into last year or the year before last. Of course, Texas A&M 8. That's the talent acquisition part of it, and probably thinks good about Elko as well. But Auburn at 9, Missouri at 10, South Carolina 11, Kentucky 12, Florida 13. I mean, I think you can throw all those, teams into a blender somewhat and come out with any order and be okay with it. But Napier beating Beamer 2 years in a row, that's enough for me. And Florida having overall more talent. I don't think it's any question for Florida to be above South Carolina. I know South Carolina went on that run last year at the end of the year by beating Tennessee and beating South Carolina or Clemson, but I'd still personally have Florida above South Carolina. If you want to put Missouri above Florida, just given what Missouri did last year, given 10 wins, okay. I can go there with Florida's last 3 years not being all that great, but Missouri's hadn't been either until last year. Auburn at number 9, I probably would shift them down. I'd even probably shift them down below Missouri at this point. Kentucky at 12, no issue being in front of Florida there, given what's happened there. But, Auburn, Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, you could throw those teams in a blender, but personally, I'd have Florida above South Carolina.
Dave, go ahead. Sorry.
So, Dave, you saying it's primarily going to be up to development and the players improving to help Billy Napier improve in the right direction. Is that what you're saying? Because, there's a ceiling as far as his ability to coach. That's what it looked like to me, because he hadn't shown he can out-coach any of the coaches.
Depends. I just think that's what they're banking on. I think the question is, can he outcoach is absolutely warranted from what we've seen the last couple of years. You can certainly ask that question. But I do think, especially along the offensive line, they are really banking on their development of the guys that they've had in the program the last couple of years. So that's got to pay off. Now, granted, like with somebody like Trevor Etienne transferring away, that's where I was kind of against so much banging on we're going to rely on high school recruiting so much and not the transfer portal early on, where you can maybe garner some wins and build some camaraderie, build some winning culture in the locker room. Look, the culture is better, but there's not a winning culture yet. Now, does the winning culture happen later? I think that's what year 3 is going to show us, or that's what year 3 is going to have to show us. But the winning culture is not there yet. But I do think that's what they are trying to develop by hitting the high school recruiting, developing from there, and not necessarily hitting the transfer portal hard early on in Billy Napier's tenure. That's where I think. But part of that is also coaching. And Billy Napier, the development's got to be better in year 3. The coaching's got to be better in year 3.
So what does Will think about the Florida recruiting? Does it seem to be turning in our favor? Because we are getting some guys, aren't we?
We're getting some guys, but it's not where it needs to be. Just take a look at this power ranking list here. You were behind Georgia in talent, Bama in talent, Texas in talent, LSU in talent, Oklahoma in talent. Given combined roster of transfer portal and recruiting, you're behind Ole Miss right now. Tennessee, Texas A&M's in front of you. You're mid-level SEC right now in talent with the acquisitions of Texas and Oklahoma coming into the Big 12 or coming into the SEC. So it's only getting harder. It's not getting any easier.
Man, and we fired Mullen. At least he was good with less.
Does not mean it was the right move to keep him in. Two things can be wrong. I'm hoping that's not. I'm hoping that's not the case here. But moving on was the right move.
Yeah, it was. The thing that. Yeah, God, it was a train wreck.
But this way, it didn't automatically mean the next hire was going to be the guy. But it was time to move on. It was time to move on.
Trust me, Dave. The next hire will be the guy.
Look, we've put this. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the Discord. Look, most coaching hires don't work out. Just most of them don't. Just in plain general college football talk, most coaching hires don't work out. I'm hoping. Look, and most of them don't start like this and work out. I'm hoping we're bucking the trend here because look, I don't want to start over. It is easier for Billy Napier to get some wins in year 3 and then build on that, especially with DJ Lagway at quarterback. That's how important he is. That is the easiest path here for Florida. The easiest path is not starting over. Starting over can work. It absolutely can. But as of right now, it's not a for sure thing. Somebody's going to come in here, want to come here and, rebuild this thing. Makes it easier with the transfer portal in a lot of ways, but still a lot of work to be done. What situation do you leave to come here and rebuild Florida? So the rebuild can be easier because of your access to talent, your pool of talent that you can pull from. But it's still easier, I think, if Billy Napier is the one that figures this out.
Yeah, who's going to come and play for Florida? Like Dan Lanner's not leaving Oregon to come here. Not happening.
Yeah, it's not a for sure thing anymore. Look, Florida is a great job. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't think that's what anybody's saying. But there's a lot of good jobs out there. That's the thing. College football has only grown. There are more jobs out there. There are more good jobs than there's ever been out there because of all the money that is in this sport now.
Yeah, it's not like it used to be. Florida's a good job, like you said, but it's not as prestigious as a job as it used to be.
Right.
Just because for the reasons you said, you could go to Ole Miss and with the good backing, good NIL, you can build a good roster. Within a couple of years, you don't have to do it through the high school. So it's just not the same sport anymore. So it's like you said. You're right. The easiest and best path is for Napier for us to win this year and to keep building on what we've already started. But if that doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. It's not as long of a rebuild, or it shouldn't be as long of a rebuild in this day of age of college football with the transfer portal and NIL. It should be the right coach could get it back up where it needs to be within a couple of years.
So has it really hit us yet that the Texas Longhorns have joined our side of the SEC?
It won't really. I mean, put it this way, I forgot they were. But I didn't forget they were in the SEC this morning. But when I was putting that list together of the returning production, at first I said, "Hey, Florida's third in the SEC in returning production," because I didn't count Texas. So I had to go back and look at it. So it's still going to take some getting used to. But yeah, it's there. But it's really going to hit home when they are playing the way they played Georgia this year. They play Florida this year. It's when we see the Red River shootout, we'll still go call it that because I don't have to be politically correct here on Gators Breakdown. The Red River shootout. I mean, there's going to be SEC logos in the Cotton Bowl instead of Big 12 logos. So that's going to be, it'll really hit home then. But Oklahoma as well. I mean, I think they play Alabama this coming up year. So I mean, I'm looking forward to all the good games we're going to get by adding those two prestigious programs.
I think the thing I'm looking for the most is that I hope we do get better, because if that kid doesn't transfer out from Texas, we got Lagway versus Arch Manning every year. So I think that'd be pretty cool to see.
Well, I think the way they're setting it up, we should play. Of course, we are playing Texas this year. We should play Oklahoma the next year, and that game should be in the Swamp. I think that was.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think that's what they were trying to figure out. If you hosted one team, if you go to Texas this year, I think you host Oklahoma the next year. I think that's what they were trying to figure it out. So we'll see. Even 2025 schedule is not really set in stone by any means yet. So. As we're seeing, we're hearing all the talk of, SEC and Big Ten getting involved in the NCAA stuff, and Big Ten and the SEC not agreeing to any kind of college football playoff format past this first year of the 12 teams. So, man, I mean, there's a lot.
So we're not
the status.
So we're not playing Texas every year.
No, not as of now. We're not. But we could be. We'll see what the 2025 schedule holds, and if that's going to be what they do for in the future. Nobody knows it's going to be 8 games or 9 games, but I mean, you're not going to play every team every year anyway. So we'll see.
Right, that's true.
So we'll see.
We could have our own league in 2025. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows where this thing's going?
Yeah, it's definitely changing.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get off big picture here. A lot of good big picture talk. Let me spit that out there. Anything, you guys? I hope you enjoyed the Trayon Webb interview. He was really forthcoming there. Glad to get a fellow Jacksonville guy, 904, right here on Gators Breakdown. But anything, of course, strength and conditioning was brought up. The transfer of ETN to Georgia was brought up. Of course, it's been out there for a few days. If you guys have caught it by now, if you haven't, go listen to it. Some articles up there at gatorsbreakdown.com as well. But what was your guys' takeaway from Webb and what he had to say?
I mean, I really enjoyed no matter where Trayvon Webb interviews, he just seems like a very, very smart individual. It's like if he doesn't make it like in football, I could see him working on Wall Street or something. Like he just seems like a sharp kid.
That is one thing I'll give Billy Napier a lot of credit for. And maybe it's because I get more access than I ever were able to get. But I'm around these players a good bit more than in the past, and I certainly look. It all wins are only thing that matters in the end. But I can honestly say, being around a lot of these kids the last couple of years, I will say Billy Napier has really brought in top-notch kids. There's not a lot of off-field troubles and not a lot of arrest on this team. I'm hoping that translates into more wins for Billy Napier and these players that he's recruited. But there's a lot of good people in the program and these kids on the team.
Yeah, he seems like a really good kid. We could use a couple of arrests. We had some arrests on the team. We were winning football games. So one or two here or there. Speeding ticket. It's just something. I'm just kidding. But, I was really glad to hear him talk about the strength and conditioning, the differences there. I hope it pays off. Kind of makes you question why it wasn't like that to begin with. But It's neither here nor there.
Well, I mean, you live and learn, but no,
Yeah.
no, I think you're right. I don't want to shove past that. I mean, we know from what we were told in here on the Discord that the exit interviews were not going too well as far as strength and conditioning goes, and then a change was eventually made. And of course, there was some talk about would be allowed to be made on moving on from hockey and bringing in somebody else. Where Fitzgerald's coming in now and seems to be a lot more physical. Seems to be building up these guys as far as strength and muscle goes. And of course, there's a fine balance between that and keeping speed and keeping that aspect of it. It's not all just strength and power is what you need in a college football strength and conditioning program. There's a lot that goes behind it, but certainly seemed like it just was not well reviewed coming out of Billy Napier's second year. Change need to be made. We got our change, and hopefully, I don't know how fast it can pay off. These things can take some time, but hopefully, it's something that pays dividends pretty on for Billy Napier.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's the heart and soul of a football team. And that's the coach that pretty much just spends most time with the players, especially over the summer. So, I mean, it pretty much where it all begins. I'm
hoping, recording this on a Monday evening. I'll put it out as soon as I can. I'm hoping I'm hoping we get Napier this week. I wasn't told here on this Monday. The regular February signing day is this week, believe it or not. But there's nothing really happening, on Wednesday for Florida. But Florida's had some transfer portal acquisitions. You've had DeAndre Robinson, of course, come into the fold for Florida's class. You've had some coaching hires. So I'm hoping that we do get Billy Napier on Wednesday or sorry, at some point this week. Put out some questions, and hopefully that's going to happen. But you guys will know for sure when it does. But hopefully we get to hear from the headman himself about the acquisitions on the roster and some of these coaching changes.
Wow, National Signing Day this week. I wasn't even thinking about it. That right there just shows you we don't need 2 signing days. It all got wrapped up earlier.
Yeah, because Wednesday is going to be uneventful, but like I said, it's really just kind of reviewing everything that's happened since early signing day.
National Signing Day used to be an event. I used to take off work, all day. It's just not the same anymore. Wow.
No,
okay.
Yeah. Besides, the Florida memories, my best memory is I was doing my internship at ESPNU in 2006, and that was right after they launched. And 2006 was the first time they did their all-day signing show. So, of course, for me being there, that's the Tim Tebow and the Percy Harvin class and the Brandon Spice class. Yeah. So, that was a lot of fun being able to cover in their first all-day signing show. And I had to even, correct them on things. They had their bottom line ticker, and they were, had Florida, and they were like key departures, and it was like Dallas Baker was on the departure list. I was like, no, Dallas Baker's coming back next year. He's going to be on this 06 team. So get them even corrected some stuff like that. It was, but being able to talk to I had a short conversation with Charlie Weiss that time, getting him ready for an interview. Through a satellite, and other players and coaches as well. But that's one of my favorite memories of a February signing day, meeting Tom Luganbill and having conversations with him. And it was just a good fun time. But this December signing days kind of ruined what was special at one time in February.
Yep. They just need to have one signing day.
I saw somebody put out an article or something before I hit record on here, and it was they talked to anonymous Power 5 coaches about the changes they want to see in college football. I'm gonna have to find it if I can, but
I'm sure that list is long.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep that conversation going in the Discord in text form. But I gotta see if I can find that. I meant to keep it, but then I put up some other stuff in the episode that I didn't plan to. I gotta see if I can find that now.
Well, while we're waiting, Dave, where was everybody in the Discord at, yourself included, Dave, when Tim Tebow committed to the Gators?
I was at home just watching.
Oh, cool.
Yep. Now it was cool. His first fall in Gainesville. Florida had their media day, and I had just started my job at Channel 4 here in Jacksonville. And one of my first big moments for helping out covering Florida and stuff was media day that year. I'd only been in the job for like 2 months right out of college. And then front page of the St. Augustine newspaper, there's Tim Tebow, and there's me putting a microphone on him. So my wife's family lives in St. Augustine, so they got it, they clipped it and saved it and sent it to me. But there's a big picture of front page of St. Augustine of me micing up Tim Tebow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We had like I'm the same age as Tebow, so when I was in high school, we had like a news come on, where they would do like a newscast or whatever, and like they had like they played like Tebow's commitment like on like the news or whatever for like the school news. And it's like I'm in a classroom full of Florida State fans, and like when he commits, like I'm like going crazy in there, and like all the Florida State fans are getting pissed. It was just a fist pumping moment.
Hopefully Lagway is something close to that.
Oh God, I hope so.
All right, I can't find that, but like I said, we'll talk in the Discord about it. But I'll see.
I'm sure they want to move the signing day to a more easier. They probably want to change the transfer portal period.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's along those lines.
For sure. But
Kiffin's gone on. He's already mentioned about the transfer portal being during the season.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys, thanks for hopping on, doing this other chat right here, and we'll put this one out for everybody. But everybody, thanks for hopping on, taking part in this chat, being Gators Breakdown Plus members. If you aren't yet, a link is in the description to join. You can hop in for conversations like this, and we'll keep it going in text form on the Discord text chats as well. But everybody, thanks so much for hopping on this episode of Gators Breakdown, and follow me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC, and check you out on the next episode.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.